Chapter 16. The dark makes people appear different. A week passed since Izuku began living with Yin and Atura. It was nearly as awkward as he thought. It would be after their improv makeout session, which was strictly for the mission, but there were still some undefinable tension. During the week, Atura's parents were hardly home, since they were busy with working and caring for his grandma. It allowed Izuku and Yin to treat each other as normal. Yin hardly paid attention to him, while he continued to be kind to her. Atura seemed to be enjoying having another member of the household more than anyone. To get to have his teacher living with him meant he could practice whenever he wanted. Of course, Izuku was more than happy to help Atura with both combat training and his studies. Izuku was learning more about Atura than his wife. He learned why Atura always fell asleep during his first period. A train passed by every morning at 6 a.m. sharp that would wake him up. He also learned why he was so obsessed with piercings. He liked to test his pain tolerance, although he swore he wasn't misogynistic. Only when Atura's parents were around would Yin finally acknowledge Izuku's presence, clinging to his arms, smiling her beautiful smile at him, letting him hold her small hand in his. But as soon as they left the room, she was back to normal. She never spoke unless he did first, or unless Atura was bothering her. He knew she was capable of conversation. She started one in his apartment when they were packing, asking if he was truly happy not being a pro hero, and he knew she was caring. She's just displayed acts of kindness multiple times before, but even sometimes, how she speaks was thoughtful. But never since their kiss. Midoriya entered his classroom to his students' lively chatter. "Good morning, everyone." "Is it true, Mr. Deku?" one of the girls shouted, her eyes filled with worry. Her and a few other students cowered around Atura's desk, who leaned over with ears plugged. "Is what true?" "That you and Miss Yin are married." Izuku's mouth unconsciously fell open. "Oh, where did you hear that from?" "You and Yin came in yesterday morning at different times." One boy raised his hand, explaining the situation. "And both of you slipped off a ring from your finger and hid it into your pockets." Wow, Izuku thought. I didn't know anyone was watching us do that. "Please tell us it's all lies, Mr. Deku," a girl pleaded, her hands clasped. "If Yin is our competition, we don't stand a chance." Competition? "Guys, we'll just have to challenge her tomorrow in combat when we have her class tomorrow," another concluded as she punched her fist into her palm. "Jeez, I told you guys already," Atura whined. "They aren't married. I don't know what you saw." "That's your lying voice," Kota conjectured, pointing to his best friend. "If you're gonna lie, do it right." "You too, Kota?" Atura cried. "Sorry, Mr. Deku." Kota turned his back away from his teacher and classmates. He suddenly was standing at the window, looking outside with tears in his eyes. "Yin will now have to choose between you and me. As of today, you are my rival." "Can we please calm down?" Izuku begged worriedly, but the class erupted into more commotion. Yin started to walk by, stopping in the doorway. "What's going on?" Izuku turned around with puppy dog eyes. "Please help!" Atsura jumped from his desk, slamming his fist on the table. "They aren't married!" The class grew silent. "They aren't married because..." He walked over to Yin, her glaring at him with suspicious eyes. He stood behind her, hugging her waist and nuzzling into the side of her neck. "Because her and I are an item." Before he could finish, Yin grabbed his arms, pulled him over her back, and slammed him into the unforgiving floor as hard as she could. Izuku and his students stood frozen, while Atura's soul floated towards the ceiling while his body twitched. "Don't make weird jokes like that again," Yin hissed. She then looked up to the students, all of them gasping as they took a step back. "And I'm not married to anyone. Keep spreading rumors like that and I'll kill you all." "Yes, ma'am." She vanished into the hallway, leaving the room stunned. I guess that's one way to deal with it, Izuku thought. And with that, Friday eventually came, and Yin and Atura were relaxing in the living room, eating sliced pears together on the floor, allowing the warm summer breeze to flow through from the patio. Their doorbell suddenly rang, catching their attention. "Get it," Yin demanded, who was lying on the carpet with a slice of fruit between her fingers. "You can say please," Atura pouted, groaning as he hopped up from this and skipped to the door. He opened it, his best friend greeting him with 2 copies of mangas. "New volumes just dropped," Koda beamed. "Koda?" Atura gasped loud enough to alert Yin. She sat up so quickly she nearly gave herself whiplash. "Yep, just stopped by the bookstore. We have to read them." Koda invited himself in, slipping off his shoes. Atura gave an awkward smile while Yin walked over. She shot Atura a confused glare, and Atura gave an apologetic one. He mouthed the words, "I forgot I told him to come over a week ago." Koda looked up, pausing when he saw Yin. She had already changed out of her work clothes, wearing black athletic shorts. One of the straps of her black tank top slipped off over her shoulder. Koda's cheeks turned pink. Good evening, Miss Yin." "Hi, Izumi," she said blankly. Koda leaned in Atura's ear. "She's so much hotter out of her cop uniform." Atura rolled his eyes, dragging his friend by the collar of his shirt. "We'll be upstairs," he called over his shoulder, yanking his still entrance friend along. Yin watched them disappear down the hall, her shoulders finally relaxing, but only for a second, because the familiar sound of tires rolling up against the curb made her stomach drop. "Shit!" Izuku's car pulled up to the side of the street, the headlights going dark as the engine cut off. Before he could even fully step out of the driver's seat, Yin already was running towards him, her quick steps quick and frantic. "Oh, good evening, Yin. Sorry I'm home late. I was busy with—" "That Izumi kid is here," she hissed, cutting him off as she shoved him back into the car with both hands. "Wait, Koda?" Izuku's eyes went wide, his back hitting the driver's seat as she loomed over him. "Why is he here?" "To hang out with our idiot, Atura," she snapped, her eyes darting towards the house as if the walls themselves had ears. "He completely forgot to mention it to us." "What are we gonna do? Renya and Azuru should be home any minute since it's Friday. If Koda sees me here, he won't hesitate to ask questions." "I know that." Midoriya bit the inside of his cheek. Yin peeked above the top of the car, scanning the area like they were fugitives on the run. "Yin, I've been meaning to talk to you about something," she replied without looking down, her eyes still sweeping the street. "Sure, what? Spit it out." "Well, you see, I was wondering if—" "The kiss?" The sudden glare of headlights flashed between them, cutting him off. A sleek black car pulled up right beside Izuku's, the sound of the engine purring to a stop. "Fuck, they're already home." "Yin?" Izuku whispered desperately. She waved at him to be quiet, grabbing his wrist and pulling him out of the car. Izuru and Renya stopped out of their sedan, greeting the two with a smile. Yin did the same, holding Izuku's hand with a welcoming grin. "Welcome home. Wow, what a perfect timing for us to arrive home at the same time," Renya said happily, opening the gate to the residence. Yin and Izuku followed behind them. They all entered the house, Yin casually surveying the first floor for enemies. Izuru insisted Renya in putting up her coat. Where's Atura?" "He's upstairs with a friend from school," Midoriya informed. "Oh, I see. Well, Renya and I actually have a suggestion for the two of you." They hummed in unison. Let's go out on a double date tonight, Renya chipped. A date? Tonight? Yin repeated. Did you two already have plans? Izuku questioned. No, we didn't. We'd love to. Izuku spoke quickly, his voice low. Is there any reason why you're speaking so quietly? Renya asked, her head falling to her left shoulder. Are you getting sick? Does your throat hurt? Izuku choked. The reason he was whispering was because he was afraid of Koda, if he would hear his voice that came downstairs. That was the last thing he needed to happen. I guess it's just a little tender from lecturing all day. He chuckled nervously. Oh, then we can postpone our double date if we need to, Renya offered, but he quickly denied. No, I'd love to go. Tonight is perfect. Well, if you're sure, then all right. She smiled. She walked over to Yin, tucking a strand of hair behind the woman's ear. Why don't the two of you go ahead and get ready? Azur and I will make dinner so Azur and his friend have something to eat while we're gone. Sure, Yin muttered. Izuku and Yin headed upstairs together, letting out a long sigh of relief when they made it to the top. Geez, a double date? Really? I seriously can't tell if she's messing with us or if she truly wants us to hang out with another couple. Izuku gave an awkward scoff. I wouldn't be surprised if it was both. Every time she smiles, it's unsettling and genuine at the same time. Down the hall, they watched as Atara's room door opened, Koda and his voice echoing in the hallway. It sounds like my parents are home. You want to meet them? Sure. Shit, Yin cursed, grabbing Izuku's wrist. Whoa, he yelped, stumbling as she yanked him forwards. The world spun for a second, and before he knew it, he had sprung open a nearby door and dragged them inside. There was a loud click of the door as it shut behind them. Darkness swallowed them whole. The space was impossibly tight, a narrow hall closet filled with the scented fabrics of linen and cleaning supplies. Every brush of fabric and every drag breath felt magnified. The air grew thick and warm, and the walls pressed in around them. Yin's back was flushed against the cold surface of the wall, her breath shallow as she struggled to keep still. Izuku was right in front of her, his body so close that the heat radiating off of him made her skin prickle. One of his hands braced against the wall just above her head, fingers spread wide, like he was trying to keep himself steady. The other hovered dangerously close to her waist, his knuckles brushing against her side of her shirt. Every time he shifted. Outside the closet, footsteps echoed. Kota and Atura coming in their direction. Yin stifled, her pulse thundering in her ears. She didn't dare to breathe. Izuku didn't move. His chest rose and fell rapidly, brushing ever so slightly against hers. The heat of his body seeped into her skin, and suddenly it felt like there was no air left in the tiny space. Their eyes adjusted slowly to the dark. When she glanced up, she realized just how close he was. The faintest glint of his green eyes, visible through the light of the crack of the door, locked on her. Then, thunk. Her elbow knocked against the wall behind her. The small sound wasn't loud, but in the tense silence, it was as if it was a gunshot. The footsteps outside stopped. Did you hear that? The pain of her hitting her funny bone just caused her to gasp, pain shooting through her. Before a noise could escape, Izuku's hand flew to her mouth, his palm covering it gently but firmly. It was probably just her cat, Bunny. She plays around the house a lot. Izuku froze, Yin froze, sorry. Her heart slammed against her ribs as her fingers rested against her cheek. Izuku's thumb brushing the corner of her jaw. His hand was warm, his touch careful but commanding, and the intimacy of it began to make her head spin. But it wasn't just the closeness. It wasn't just the heat or the way his breath mixed with hers in the dark. It was that her mind was starting to betray her, because when she looked up at him in the dim, fragile light, her chest began to tighten in a way that had nothing to do with nerves. It was sharp as his face, the way the shadows softened his features, the tousled mess of his hair, darker in the low light, the steady set of his jaw as he turned towards the door, his body a protective barrier between her and the outside world. Her breath caught. He looked like him, like Toji. The resemblance was subtle, but undeniable, with the freckles buried in the dark and the usual brightness of his green eyes dulled. It hit her like a punch to the gut. Her throat closed up. Her chest started to hurt. The familiar ache crawling up her ribs, sharp and suffocating. The same pain she buried for over a year, the one that kept her at bay with long hours and dangerous missions. The same pain she never felt herself sit along with too long, because if she did, it threatened to consume her. And now, here it was, staring her in the face. It rose up like a wave, crashing over her and threatening to drown her in the memory of everything she'd lost. And as the pressure built behind her eyes, she bit the inside of her cheek so hard it hurt, desperate to hold back the flood, because if she started to cry now, she wasn't going to be able to stop. Yin? Her eyes spun. She tried to blink it away, but the images stayed. The curve of his jaw, the tension in his shoulders, it was all too familiar. And for one terrible second, she wanted to pretend. She wanted to reach out and pull him closer, cry in his arms, feel his warmth, apologize for being the reason he was dead. Yin! Izuku's voice pulled her out of her thoughts. He must have been calling her for a while. He had pushed open the door of the closet, the hallway clear. He looked at her with a sad gaze, speechless, hot tears streaming down her face. What's wrong? He whispered, stepping towards her. His hand hovered over her cheek, hesitant to touch her. Why are you crying? A wave of guilt crashed over her, heavy and suffocating. He wasn't him. He would never be him. And yet, for a fleeting second, she had wanted him to be. She let the warmth of Izuku's touch, the safety of his body near hers, trick her into resembling someone she could never get back. It was so unfair. Unfair to Izuku. Unfair to the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, even now. Unfair to the kindness he offered so freely, without knowing the shadow he stood in. She was using him without his knowledge, twisting his warmth into something she had no right to take. How pitiful, how selfish of her. Her throat tightened painfully. She realized then why she couldn't meet his eyes, because when she did, she didn't see him, not really. She saw pieces of someone else, fragments of a ghost she had never learned to let go of. In that kiss, her stomach turned. Immediately enough, she liked the kiss her and Izuku had. But why? Did she like it because it was temporarily evading her pain, allowing herself to finally live in a moment for once? Or did she like it because it was Izuku? The tears welled up before she could stop them, blurring the edges of Izuku's face. The tears couldn't stop, crying because she missed Toji, crying because of the guilt of looking at Izuku's face and seeing someone else without his knowledge, crying because she was feeling things she couldn't understand. Izuku's hand still hovered near her face, twitching before pulling back. I'm sorry, Yin, he whispered. Izuku froze, his eyes searching hers, and what he followed made his heart stumble. She looked empty, hollowed out and pale, as if something inside her had quietly broken. Did I do something? Izuku asked quietly. She shook her head, the motion slow and almost listless. No, you didn't. You did nothing at all. Izuku's throat bobbed, but before he could speak, she brushed past him, her shoulders barely grazing his arm as she moved down the hallway. I'm gonna wash up. And the door slammed behind her, leaving Izuku alone in the hall to think what he had done wrong.